So first off, I have to apologize for the video. It may not do the best job of representing the game, but I have to be really careful because with YouTube, this can easily get demonetized or flagged or something like that. Namely because this game does take some inspiration from John Wick and really crazy, say, over-the-top action films, and it definitely has aspects of that, including it's a first-person shooter, as well as the fact that they add a lot of humor in with a lot of the violence. So I'm going to try to put more of that in the middle of the video, and then the beginning and end will be more of checking out the environment, and there is some pretty cool stuff about that as well. I only brought this up just because if the gameplay does look dull or the video itself is a little boring, just to explain why I'm not adding a lot of the action in there. I'm going to definitely try to get some of it in there. But what's kind of interesting about this game is even though it does kind of look like John Wick meets Cyberpunk 2077, it is not really that. It's actually, while having a lot of combat and a lot of craziness, it's kind of a slower paced game. A little bit slower paced than I thought. When I first checked it out, I thought, well, this is gonna be just like Ghost Runner or Neon White or one of those games where it's just kind of like focused on going fast and getting to the end of the stage with causing as much damage as you possibly can. But honestly, Project Downfall isn't just one type of game. Yeah, there is the first-person shooter aspect, there is the complete chaos and taking people out and being over the top, violent and whatever, but it's actually quite methodical and tactical. You don't always just rush at the enemies. If you do, you're going to end up dying. And you can kind of move around and kind of get them to chase you. You can do your own version of like a feint attack. Use the environment to make things easier for you. Now, don't get me wrong. There is a mechanic where you pop a pill and basically become super strong. And you can essentially kick your enemies to hell. It's a crazy fun idea there. As well as there's a rage meter where basically it's like bullet time, but also you're super strong at the same time. It's a really cool idea, and it's definitely well worth it, and it's something you're going to use a lot, because in many ways, you have to use multiple strategies per level, per area. Not just one thing works all the time. Especially as the game goes on, the levels get longer, and this game is punishing. It is really punishing. You can't take many hits before you die, and in my experience, each level would take me multiple tries. Early on, you can kind of get past it, but honestly, much past like the third level, you're probably going to die quite a few times, and that's fine, because the nice thing is, while the game can be brutal, it's not punishing, and when you die, it's almost instantaneous that you're restarting that level again. Now, I will explain a little bit of a dynamic of the game formula, if you will, and that is each stage probably has anywhere between 2 to 5 levels, and the nice thing to know is whatever damage you take per level doesn't travel with you. So let's just say you're in the third level of the 4th stage or whatever. When you hit the 5th level, your health will go back to being full. Now the bad thing is you also lose all your weapons. So if you did find something that you really liked and was working for you well, you're going to lose it at the end of this short level, which usually only lasts about a couple minutes. So it's not like a big thing. You don't get attached to the things, but it's just something to take note of. And for me, it was kind of reassuring because there's so many times when if that health would have carried over, I wouldn't have made it through the stage. Not even through the first stage, if I'm being honest. Outside of like that pill mechanic, the bullet time where you get super strength, it pretty much plays like a normal FPS. There is a cool slide move that you can do, but most of those are in modern FPSs as well. And the most important thing with combat is it runs really well. I had little to no stuttering. There was no lag. It performed, like I said, really good, and it has to. Like if it didn't, this game would be a failure. But I'm happy to report that the game performs great. And another cool aspect of the combat though is having your headphones. I tried this only a couple times, and it is cool because you can hear enemies around you. Though a lot of times you'll get into an area where there's multiple turns and alleys and stuff, and there'll be enemies that attack you with like melee weapons, and so if you're not really listening, it's hard to hear them. But if you got the earphones on, you can totally tell where they're coming from, and that's a pretty cool mechanic as well. And in between the combat, I think is one of the most interesting aspects of the game because so many things are interactive. You can mess with like a lot of stuff back in your apartment. You can talk to your girlfriend who may or may not be real. You'll know what I mean when you see her, or I will specifically show some part of the video of her. Like she's almost like see through. Like, I think she might be fake, but there's a ton of references to like other dystopian, futuristic type games, and there's also just a lot of things that, like I said, you can interact with, from like a mini game to the fact that if you break something in your apartment, your girlfriend will be like, I know you didn't like that, but you could have just told me and I would have got rid of it. You didn't have to break it. I did that with a vase and it was pretty funny. I didn't expect her to react like that. But that's not the only thing. In fact, your decisions actually matter in this game, because there are different branching options at different times, and even just some of the actions or choices that you make while you're out on a mission will affect the entire game. In fact, it's a pretty beefy game. Not like it's super long, but there's quite a bit of content, and it runs about 4 to 5 hours. But get this, it has 12 different endings. Now, to be clear, is it possible to beat this game in like 2 to 3 hours? Probably. Not for me, but for some people. For me, it did take around 3.5 to 4 hours. And honestly, I felt like I skipped a lot of things, or I didn't do a lot of stuff. I didn't play the mini games very much, or even interact with a lot of the NPCs. Now, if you're curious about the story, honestly, so am I. Like, this is a game about a dystopian future where the people are encouraged, or, well, it's mandatory to take these like hallucinogenic drugs to keep working in this hellhole. I mean, literally opium for the people. Yet, I don't know if maybe this is also just the way it reacts with your character. I don't know if everyone's having the same experience. I don't know. But I can say, like, that's where the game gets a little cloudy for me. Again, even though I beat it, I don't want to ruin anything, but there are definitely times where you're like, I'm not sure if this is real, or if my dude's just on a bad trip, or what's going on. And for me, the aesthetics, the art style of this game really added to that, because it's very interesting. Like, it can be kind of funny. Like, the enemies are kind of like paper. When you shoot them, they like rip in half. Like, there's also moments, I just got to mention this with the enemies, where headshots and nut shots count, and when you kick them in the nuts, it is hilarious. Like, their face turns purple, they double over. It's really funny. And that's what I mean when I say, like, yes, it's brutal, it's violent, but it's also like over the top in such a way that it's pretty funny. But back to the art style, like, the enemies and a lot of the NPCs in general, they look like they're 2D in this like 3D world. Like, you can kind of see around them, like they're thin, and everything will flash different colors, and you will have like little auditory and visual hallucinations here and there, like just slight. It'll be just enough. And then of course you have like your full blown trips as well. And I respect the art style, I do, and I think they had to go with it to get the game to perform as well as it did, especially like on the Switch. So I completely get it. I just didn't love the visuals, but again, that's very, very subjective, and I admit, like, I respect them and I can understand where people would like it, just not for me. Now, for me, the biggest issue with this game, honestly, is the price point, because regularly I think the game is around $24.99, something like that. It's pretty pricey, even though, like I said, there's a lot of content to it, and there's multiple endings, there's a lot of strategy to the gameplay, and the game's done really well. Like, I think there's a world where it's definitely worth that, but considering the competition, considering the market of the Nintendo eShop, I would like to see the game around like that $15 to $20 range. I just think that that's closer to what it should be, at least to sell more copies. And right now it is on like a 30% discount. So, it is a good time to check it out if you're interested, or just a decent game to throw on the wish list. I do also have to thank Lucy at Red Deer Games for hooking me up with the review copy. And for my final score, I would give this game a solid 7.5 out of 10. I think it's really good, and I think a lot of people who enjoy that style of gameplay are really gonna enjoy this. And I'm trying to be as objective as I possibly can, because if I'm being honest, these aren't really my type of games. Again, I enjoy them and I think they're a lot of fun, but it's not something I'm gonna immediately be drawn to. But I know a lot of people are, and I definitely think that this is one to keep on your radar, if nothing else. It definitely, add to the wish list kind of thing. But anyway, that's my thoughts on Project Downfall. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are. Have you checked it out? Have you heard about it? Is this one you've been interested in? Anything and everything in the comment section, very much appreciated. I love each and every one of you guys. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.